Hello and welcome to the Romance Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z Martin, and tonight we are talking about romantic locations to write about and to visit, ones we've liked and ones we'd like to write about. So before we start on that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Layla.
Hi, I'm Layla Dorine. I write LGBTQ fiction and romance, heavy on the bikers, the shifters, the rockers, and all things daddy and littles and pets.
Okay, Ari?
I'm Ari McKsay, and with my writing partner Rachel Angela, we write romance across the spectrum of genres, from contemporary to paranormal and everything else.
Very good. Dawn?
Hi, I'm Dawn. I write under the name DS Steele. I write a little bit of everything romance-wise, contemporary, paranormal, historical.
Okay. And I'm Gail Z Martin and Morgan Brice. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. All of my modern day worlds cross over with each other. So, Layla, start us off. What's one of your favorite locations?
Uh, Estes Park, Colorado. I had the wonderful pleasure of probably about a dozen years ago now. I packed a backpack and my camera bag, and I went up there on my own, camped out at the KOA and went wandering the Rocky Mountains, checked out the awesome hotel that's up there that inspired Stephen King's The Shining, and did this rock and roll Jeep tour of like the wilderness back there, and did a 6 hour cowboy horseback riding adventure, and that ended in a cowboy supper. And that cowboy supper really inspired me to write the book Racing the Sky. I ended up, tired, sore, had not been on horseback for 6 hours like that in a very long time. And when I got back to my tent, I was like, oh man, I am awake enough to not want to sleep, but too tired to do anything productive. So I hauled my clothes up to the laundry, threw it in the laundry chute, and I started watching dirt bike racing. And I was like, ooh, dirt bike racing romance. And then I started thinking about all the adventures I'd been on. And I was like, I could just picture doing those things with a partner. The horseback riding, the eating the meal afterwards, the hiking up to the waterfall and just sitting with that cool, crisp water and the view and taking pictures of the elk. And it was just so peaceful in a very unconventional way that it has wormed its way into several stories, including the rocker one I'm working on now, because they are camped out at the very same campground in Estes Park. Their tour buses are there and they are working on music. And I'm like, this is just such a beautiful romantic setting. And I still swear to this day that I saw a mountain lion.
Well, maybe you did. Ari?
Well, I'm a little more hedonistic than Layla is. Camping is not my jam, but cruising is. And in fact, I just got back from 2 weeks in the Caribbean and, of course, to the East Coast ice storm, which was
Mm.
not pleasant. But I'm actually from South Florida, so I grew up with, the Caribbean as being part of my. In fact, I grew up on a road called Caribbean Boulevard. And so I love everything about cruising and things to do with cruise ships. And we actually wrote a book several years ago called Seeking Solace, which is all about a bartender on a cruise ship falling in love with the director of the cruise line. And that was a lot of fun. And for upcoming, what is it called? Pride in Motion, Layla? Is that the one that we're doing
Yes.
for June?
Pride in Motion. Yes.
Is going to be set on a cruise ship.
Nice.
So, yeah, everything about cruising, from the ports of call to the, romantic nights at sea, are just absolutely wonderful to me.
I've got to admit, I love going on cruises too, although I haven't written about them yet. Dawn?
Same, Mari. I love cruising.
Mhm.
I love to travel, and usually I would say it's the last place I was. But if I had to pick a place, it's Ireland. My mother got me going there. I think this year was my 12th visit.
Wow.
And yeah, so I've managed to literally see every county in Ireland, and it's really fun to write about because it's it's different. It is lovely and green, but each area has its own nuances and charm. Donegal's wild, literally wild, and then you go down south and it's a little more refined and it feels a little more, I don't know, Edwardian, I suppose, in some places. So there's a lot to mine there, plus the culture that runs through everything. And so I've written like five different things that are situated, in Ireland. I think just it calls to me.
Very good. Well, I'm going to start with my Badlands series, which is not, as you might think, set in either New Jersey or the West. It is set in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So why the name? Well, one of my characters is a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. So every book in the series is the title of a Springsteen song. But it's set in Myrtle Beach, where we have gone on vacation as a family and now just as my husband and I for many, many years. Um, it is a great beach town. The beach itself is lovely. It is unpretentious. It has a lot of fun, no matter what you want to do. If you want to go out for a good meal, plenty of good restaurants. If you want to play putt-putt, they've got it. There's pretty much everything you could think of for a good vacation. And yet like I said, it's not pretentious. It's not highfalutin or anything. It's just a very nice place to go and have a family time on the beach or have a couple time on the beach. And so it's been a lot of fun to delve into the area's history and legends and lore and myths um, for my main characters, because I think we're on book 7 or 8 now in the series. So I've gotten to know a lot more about Myrtle Beach than I ever knew as a vacationer, and it's a lot of fun. I still love the area. Back to you, Layla. Give us another one.
Montreal, actually. I went to college in Burlington, Vermont, or in Northfield, Vermont, but I worked in Burlington. And I actually took this trip with friends and someone I was dating at the time. We went through Burlington. It was a road trip that took us up to Montreal. And at the time, you didn't even need a passport, you just needed your license. Wandering St. Catherine Street with a smattering of French, just enough to read the subway signs. And I mean, if you've never been to St. Catherine Street, it's pretty much wall to wall bars. And for those of us who write rock stars, we know what the rock stars can get up to, bar hopping and impromptu singing as they're going arm in arm down the street and sampling the food. And a couple of places are strip clubs and they're very, open. And, we were dancing with some of the strippers in the clubs. So, like, I love writing some of that stuff into the book because even though it's a cityscape, it was such a different city. It was such a cool vibe to get to the top floor roof of the beach club. I don't even know if it still exists. And order shots for $5, drink them, and then dance with the strippers all night. And then arm in arm, traipsy down the block, stumble into, this restaurant that's got really cool seafood and steaks, and you're chatting and you're just kind of getting to know each other, but you're also like just enjoying that relaxed vibe, that party atmosphere. And I went back to the city many, many times. I love Canada. Toronto's another favorite, but Montreal has a special place in my heart because I discovered it when I was 18. The drinking age was 18 there at the time. So it became, we didn't spring break in the US. That became our party place. We actually once went up there, took the subway into the city, and the friend that I was with could not read French. And my grandmother is from the Montreal area, so I knew just enough French to get us close to the hotel. If you have ever fallen down a hill and ended up making out in a snowdrift, you will understand my absolute love for navigating that city because those are the memories that I have and that have woven into a few books because it's just so much fun and not expensive and so many memories.
Cool. Very cool. Ari, how about you?
So probably one of my favorite cities anywhere is New Orleans. I've been there several times, and most recently was in 2024. Myself and Tammy Travis arranged a writers retreat, and we took over the Lafitte Guest House Hotel, which is haunted. Um, and it was just so great having this whole group of writers, and we would write during the day, and in the evenings we would crawl Bourbon Street. We went on a ghost tour. We went on a vampire tour. It was just New Orleans has something for everyone, no matter what your taste is. How you were talking about, things can be refined or not. You can have a little spicier in other areas. New Orleans is so that, if you want the parties, you go to Bourbon Street, but if you want the history or the ghosts or whatever, you can go crawling the French Quarter. There's some beautiful museums. There's just something about that city that there's so much life there. It's so unique. New Orleans is not like any place else in the world. And, that is one of my all-time favorite places to go. And hopefully we'll be going there again next year. And I can't wait.
Cool. Yeah, I love that city. Dawn?
Yeah, I was just in New Orleans for my 30th wedding anniversary.
Oh,
Happy
Highly
anniversary.
recommend the bar Fetiche. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, I love New Orleans. New Orleans has ended up in one of my books. One I haven't had a chance to write about, but a city I love, Venice. It was one of my bucket list. Like, before I die, I had to get to Venice. And I think part of it is my background as an English teacher, and I would teach Othello. And the first time I got there in Venice, you can go into the city via car, but it's water. Or you can go from the airport and you can actually go ahead and pick up a vaporetto. So you go in by water taxi. And it's 5 a.m. and the sun is rising and I'm vibrating. My husband's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, you don't understand. Like, this is sort of the pinnacle of everything." And it's not what I expected, and it's everything I wanted. It's there are tiny streets, and we got lost and walked in circles, and my Italian is probably a lot like Layla's French. And because the buildings are tall and narrow, the GPS wasn't working. And we actually kept walking around our hotel. We didn't know it wasn't marked. And it was it was a lot of fun. Highly recommend. We ended up staying in a hotel that is in where Don Juan was born, in the city. So just down the street, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And there's a museum and you can go and do that. So highly, highly recommend, even if you don't speak Italian and you wander around hopelessly for a while, go.
Well, I'm going to go from the beach to the mountains. The Adirondacks in New York. It's a state park. It is gorgeous. It's huge. It's cool even in the summer. But the mountains are gorgeous. The lakes are gorgeous. And when I was a kid growing up, my family and some other family friends went camping there. And that just made me fall in love with the area. Now, when I've gone back as an adult, I stay at a motel because I like beds and heat and restaurants. But it was quite the experience as a kid growing up, and I'm glad that I got to do that. But it's just absolutely gorgeous. And so, where else would you put a series about shapeshifters than in the Adirondacks? I mean, it's a perfect place for fox shifters and moose shifters and raccoon shifters and possum shifters and, lynxes and, all kinds of shifters, because it's the kind of place they could go and hang out and live their two-sided lives and be perfectly fine. So it's always fun to use a setting that you've already fallen in love with, because in the course of writing the book, you get to delve into the history and, as I mentioned before, the legends, the ghost stories, and all of that. So you get this whole new appreciation for the area beyond what made you think to set a series there to begin with. So I fall in love all over again when I'm working on a book in the Fox Hollow series, which I'm doing now. Layla, give us another location.
Melbourne, Australia.
Ooh.
So 2, 3 years ago now, TL Travis and I went to Rare Melbourne and we didn't stay at the Venue Hotel. We stayed at a place that was directly across the street from the entrance to Chinatown. And in the heart of downtown Melbourne, where we were wandering around and there was literally like a place where you could get pizza by the slice, and it's still some of the best pizza I've ever had. And the architecture was positively amazing downtown. Like, I took so many pictures of the structures of the building because their lines were different and they were very geometrical. So if you have, one of your, members of your couple that loves photography or loves architecture or loves wandering to find book, we found an underground bookstore. And when I say underground, I don't just mean the type where you walk down the steps and you're in the bookstore, because I did find one of those. I'm talking like one of those resistance style, we got all kinds of pins and memorabilia in this amazing bookstore, that was, just this walking distance from our hotel. But if you want to talk really like the most romantic thing ever, a group of us authors went and had an Italian meal at this gorgeous restaurant on the waterfront. And their waterfront there was lit up blue at the time. And there were performers. There was like fire coming up from these like flaming things, and there were performers out there, and it was all glittering along the waterfront, and we're just walking, and it's like so gorgeous with all the lights and the vibe and the atmosphere and the food, very like intimate table setting where even in a group the people who are sitting like right close could have private conversations and share food and joke around. And I ate so much calamari on that trip. It was unbelievable. And we did have somebody in the group who like recreated the Lady and the Tramp scene with the string of spaghetti. And, it was just, it's beautiful. And to think about a place that you could wander during the day and do so much. I mean, they have an aquarium down there. Toward the aquarium, we toured a zoo. There were botanical gardens. We even went on a food and wine tour. And let me tell you, take a bunch of authors on a food and wine tour. We went into the Yarra Valley. We had cheese and fruit, and everywhere we went, there was multiple wines to sample. And we're just giddy by the time we get off the bus. And we had a beautiful roast beef dinner at one of the wineries with different wines that paired with the meal. And it just was this adventure that was so amazing because it was not only just a different country, but it was a whole different vibe. It
Mm-hmm.
was this relaxed, beautiful, everything was very homemade, farm to table. The wines were made, you got to see where the wines were made, you got to see the vineyards out the window. So I really just fell in love with the entire city of Melbourne. I can't wait to see more of Australia.
Very cool. Ari?
Um, so it's kind of a toss up, but I think I'm going to go with Bavaria. I was very blessed many years ago to spend 3 weeks in Bad Aibling, Germany. And one of the beauties of Germany, at least at the time that I went, I haven't been, I haven't been in this millennium, but getting around by train is cheap and easy. And so I was with a group of people from work, and we went up to Heidelberg and we went to Munich. We went down to Austria. It was just so easy to get around, and the countryside is stunning. It is just absolutely breathtaking. And this is going to sound kind of weird, I guess, but as an American, everything we have is new, right?
Mhm.
And when you're walking into buildings that are like 1500 years old, like the hotel that I stayed at in Bad Aibling was a 900-year-old castle that they had made into a bed and breakfast kind of hotel. And like the walls were literally like 2.5 feet thick, right? So you like had to lean over the casements to open your window. And it was just the feeling of how old everything was. And like it had this sense of permanence that I I I know it sounds weird. You probably got it in Ireland, Dawn, with probably because everything there is very old as well, where it just the land is old. It's ancient. It's mellow. Like it's not as raw and dug up as America is. And the it's just so beautiful. You walk out and it's just all of these stunning vistas right outside of your hotel with the mountains rising in the distance. And the people were lovely. My German got very, very good by the time I left, but they were always so helpful when you couldn't quite speak the language. But it was just, I mean, I wish my husband had been there because it was incredibly romantic, going up into the castles and everything. And I highly recommend anybody who has a chance to go to Bavaria and just spend some time just walking around. It's well worth it.
Very good. Dawn?
Yeah, Bavaria. My daughter's probably cheering in the next room. She spent a year in Germany. Um, a place that I would never have thought romantic, but turned out to be Kyoto. We went to Japan. It was a trip basically for my husband. It was his jam. This is something he had always wanted to do, and I knew he wanted to do a tea ceremony, and I somehow figured out how to get us to Kyoto from the cruise port. We actually did a cruise around, and um, the balance of old and new was really wonderful. The city sort of divided. So they had the modern where you come in on the train station, but then you wander down what most people would think of as traditional Japan and the temples. And um, we were there during cherry blossom season. And so there was a lovely haname, the huge festival, and we're sitting on the ground and there's cherry blossoms falling over us. I mean, everything you could ask for in terms of romance was there. And I love playing with this idea of a stranger in a strange land. And so, I'm supposed to be enjoying all of these things I can't pronounce, and I'm not exactly sure what I ate. And my brain's going, I can use this. I can use this. This is going to work for me. So, yes, good. To Japan after Melbourne.
Well, I found this location in a very romantic way because our oldest daughter picked it as the place to get married. Cape May, New Jersey.
Oh.
I had never been there before. Um, but it is an absolutely gorgeous city, not a bustling city, a bigger than a town, smaller than a big city. It has all the stuff you need, but it still has a smaller town feel. And a lot of the buildings are Victorian, including some fantastic, gigantic Victorian hotels. There's one that used to be a convent. And I've used several of them, as well as the lighthouse on the covers of my Treasure Trail series. But again, just fun to revisit every time we have a new book in the series, which that's our latest book out is Angels and Omens, the fourth book in that series. But every time I learn more about Cape May, I learn more about the history. I find out more about one of the buildings. And so that's just so much fun. But let me tell you, it sure made a very pretty setting for a wedding. All right. Last round to go around like this because I still want time to make a final round so everybody can say what they've got coming and new books and all of that and where to find you. So Layla, give us your next pitch.
Blackpool, England. The waterfront area in particular. The fact that you can walk from pier to pier and see so many sights, the tower for one, which I didn't realize that they hold something very similar to like our Dancing with the Stars in the Blackpool Tower. And you can watch, and it's absolutely an amazing sight to watch the dancers. And you can do a little chair dancing in there if you're inclined to join in with the music, and then strolling arm in arm along the beach, which is right across the street. There are so many little stands. Like I found saltwater taffy and all these little candies that we couldn't get here, and all these little trinkets at like the souvenir shop that wasn't quite a souvenir shop because it was actually like really fun, neat things that were in there. And there was an arcade. Well, there were more than one arcade, but the one that we spent our time in had a pub that sold pints of beer and fish and chips. And then we were tipsy playing games that only cost like a 20-cent piece at the little machines that you played, and you almost always won at every machine. So we're collecting tickets and little buckets of candy that are falling out of the machine and having a grand old time playing these games. But then as you keep walking, and you can kind of weave back and forth across the streets, you can be on the beach or off the beach. And the beach alone, especially when it's warm, you can kick your shoes off and roll up your, pant legs and walk along the beach and talk and, look at the pier in the distance because there's a second pier, which I didn't know. So I got to tour several parts of the city as I wandered and asked people, how do I get to the pier? And some people would send me towards the North Pier, and some people would send me towards the South Pier. And I had a grand old time finding some just amazing off the beaten path, non-touristy spots in Blackpool because I'm wandering neighborhoods with like authentic food, cooked there, and stopping at little diners to grab something to drink and be like, so which way is the pier? And they would be like, okay. And then finally some person was like, which pier? Well, when you walk that stretch of beach from pier to pier, which I eventually did, there's an amusement park on the other end. And there's absolutely nothing more fun, at least to me, than date night at an amusement park where you can cling to each other on all the super scary loop-de-loop-de upside down rides. And, you can, go through the fun house and grab cotton candy and ride the silly, I think they had one that I can't even, it was like a Nickelodeon style ride. It's like a children's show, but it was super cute. So like being able to just have so much fun in so many different ways in this like stretch of wasn't even 2 miles, I don't think, that you walked was just amazing. And they had double decker buses, which I had never ever been on. So sitting on the top level of the double decker bus, and I could just picture like snuggling up there and looking out and seeing the sights. And I absolutely love to travel, and that was one of the most enjoyable places that I have visited, in my travels actually. And I've seen all but one state. So
That's pretty cool. Ari?
I guess I'll save the one we write about the most for last, and that would be Asheville, North Carolina. We have a whole series set there, and Asheville actually shows up in several other of our books, Asheville and Maggie Valley. And it's just such a beautiful area. I mean, North Carolina has a lot to recommend it, anyway, but Western North Carolina is, near and dear to my heart. I really, really love it out there. Um, the scenery, the surprising number of ghost towns and ghostly haunting kinds of things that have to do with the Appalachian Trail. There used to be a hotel on the Appalachian Trail on one of the really, really off the beaten path trails that was torn down eventually. It was called the Cloudland Hotel. And one of my dreams is to hike up there. I have not yet done it. I'm not a big avid hiker, but I really want to go up there and hear the Phantom Choir of Roan Mountain and see all of the see all of the supposed ghost sightings that take place in that area of the state. And of course, then, you have Asheville itself is very cosmopolitan, and it's a foodie town. And I love me some foodie towns, as you can tell by me liking New Orleans. Um, but that Western North Carolina is very beautiful. It's one reason why we've set so many books there. It has got, the Indian reservation in the western part of the state, that has its whole own culture. We have big werewolf packs that we have set out in that area of the state, because it's like you said, for the Adirondacks, it's a perfect place to have shifters. It's a great, great place for a paranormal setting. So, I absolutely love Western North Carolina.
It is beautiful. Dawn?
Um, like Layla, my 17-year-old story, south of France, a little place called Cavalier-sur-Mer, and so it's got what you think of as Cannes and Nice vibe, but it's much smaller, much homier, but you're still in the Mediterranean. Um, there weren't a whole lot of Americans, so I was an oddity, which is kind of cool when French guys want to talk to you, even though I had no clue what they were talking about. I just nodded and smiled. So it's got the lovely sunsets of the Caribbean, but sort of the antiquity of Paris, and of course the food. How do you not love the food? So that that has popped up in different places for me.
Okay. Well, mine would be Charleston, South Carolina. That's where our Deadly Curiosities series is set, and it has frequent crossovers. It's under my Gail name, but it has frequent crossovers with the Morgan series. And it's interesting when you compare like Charleston and Cape May, because they're both very, very big on Victorian architecture and homes and hotels and history and churches. But one is very Southern and one is very New England. And there's just a very different feel to it. And Charleston, South Carolina is just the perfect place for, well, it's said to be very haunted. But it's the perfect place to have magic and psychics and a vampire character and all kinds of good stuff, and a antique and curio shop that gets dangerous and cursed objects off the market and out of the wrong hands. That just all seems to fit in Charleston. So I always have time. I always have a good time visiting, but I enjoy writing more books in the series because then I get to spend more time, hunting up cool new stuff to include in the books. Well, folks, we are almost at the end of our time, so I want to go around very briefly, let everybody know where they can find you online, and if you have a new, recent, or upcoming book, tell us about it. Layla?
Well, I am Layla Dorine. You can find me at Layla Dorine author at wix.com, Rainbow Lyrics and Mellow Mushrooms, all over Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. My upcoming book is coming out on February 21st. It is Daddy's Precious Pets, and it is part of the Lacton Brotherhood series.
Very nice. Ari?
You can find me at ReMcKay.com and on Facebook way too much. The last book that I had released was called Under a Solstice Sea. That was part of the Tentacular Christmas 3.0 series, where I actually have a transhuman cyborg falling in love, which was very interesting to write. And my next release, which is as yet untitled, will be part of the Pride in Motion series, and that will be coming in June.
Very nice. Dawn?
You can find me at dsdeal.com. That's probably the easiest way to pick up all my social links. My most recent publication is in Boys Behaving Badly, an anthology by Delilah Devlin, and my trip to Japan pops up there. I'm currently working on a story set in, wait for it, Ireland, and one of the most cursed houses called Loftus Hall. So hopefully I'll get that in your hands in the next year.
Okay. Well, I mentioned Angels and Omens, which is the fourth book in the Treasure Trail series set in Cape May. So that just came out. And we're working on Necessities, which is the next book in the Fox Hollow series. So looking forward to that. And then Thunder Road in the Badlands series just came out on audiobook. So lots of good stuff to get caught up on. I'm pretty easy to find online as gailzmartin.com, morganbrice.com. If you spell those right, you'll find me on all the major social media. So yeah, pretty easy to find me and the books. Folks, thank you so much for being absolutely wonderful panelists, and thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more romance on Continual, so we'll see you online.